I think that's probably from some of the other partners we work with. That's a value proposition that we, as the Lufthansa Group, bring to the table. We can help them when it comes to knowledge sharing. We can help them when it comes to the complexities. So I think that's something that we definitely feel is part of the whole deal that we would do with them, is bring a value there that helps them in the long term.
If we switch and start to think going forward, right? We talked about earlier today the copycat theme, and those of us that met yesterday, we talked about this as well. There was the airlines that were the founding members of alliances that did it well, the founded joint ventures did it well, but lots of airlines then just say, well, me too, I feel like I'm missing out. And there's a danger with that, because then, you feel like you're missing out, you race to buy something, you think, oh, house prices are going up. If I don't go buy something now, I'm going to lose out, you end up buying a bad house. Same with alliances. You say, oh, I'm going to miss out, I need to race into a bad deal, and then it takes time to fix it. One of the challenges is we need to start thinking, well, how are we going to deal with this going forward? Do we start to say no to some partners more often? Do we sort of unwind some partnerships? Or is there a new business model of what partnerships will look like? Because alliances, joint ventures are 17 years old. They're incredibly young, which actually means they haven't matured yet. 17 years in this industry is nothing. Right?
I think we talked a lot about simplicity for the LCCs, but actually the FSCs are looking for simplicity too. I mean, I think Michael and others made the point very well that, frankly, if you can do without alliances, do without them. Yeah. If you can do it on your own, it's so much better. I think the other thing that's going to change, though, we talk about lines blurring between FSCs and LCCs, but the other area of blurring is between what used to be described as long-haul travel and short-haul. I mean, with the new aircraft coming along, shortly we'll have single-aisle aircraft capable of going 6 hours, 7 hours. That, I think, is going to be a huge impetus to airlines like ourselves, smaller carriers that historically would have closed routes because they were too thin for wide bodies. With the new generation narrow bodies coming along that can go 6 or 7 hours, which is enough to take us to Australia from the island of Borneo. That creates an opportunity for us independently to do something that we wouldn't have been able to do before. So there's no shame in not being part of an alliance, frankly, and if you can survive without it, I would say, so much the better. Simplicity is king.
So what's interesting, if you look at Dermot's profile, you'll see he was at Emirates in the early days, and that way of thinking still prevails at Emirates, which is add partners at the absolute extreme end, do whatever you can. So if you can connect 2 points in the world by yourself, don't partner. Because the reality is when you prorate the revenue out, you dilute your own network, you cannibalize your own network. How many airlines in the room believe that the more SPAs, interlines, code shares they sign up, the better? How many think not? Are there any airlines it's only one airline in the room. Now Bangkok Air is in the room, you're not answering, you're trying to get away with this. Okay, forget airline. How many people in the room think the more SPAs, code shares, interline agreements an airline has, the better for that airline?
It depends. Would be my answer.
So
it depends on my network, it depends on my presence in the world, on the region. It depends.
On my own cost structure as well. Working for Lufthansa, I can say that definitely at the moment, being in Southeast Asia, being a niche carrier, we need as many SPAs as possible to really to feed to our hubs.
I was just going to say, as salespeople, that's of course what we would like, but tell that to our alliances
when
you get a different point of view. No, but obviously, like Heiko said, my colleague, and especially Southeast Asia, when 60% of the capacity is LCCs and smaller carriers, for us to be able to get that feeder, we need more SPAs. But is it the best way? I'm not so sure.
I know what you're getting at. You're saying, are we cannibalizing ourselves? But for our situation, we've been growing at 33% compound growth for the past 6 years, and not content with that, we're actually looking at 50% growth this year, which for a 10-year-old business is pretty significant. So, but we're leveraging this enormous outbound China market, which is growing at kind of 10 billion a year, it's just firmly a growth mode at the moment. So I can understand what you're saying about whether, all else being equal, are you actually cannibalizing your own? Would you get some of that business anyway? But in a market environment with the growth that we've got, it is often a case of just trying to grow as much partnership revenues as possible.
Yeah. So I think what Aditya's made a very important point here. If you talk to airline people who are at outstation, the answer is always yes. Because as Dermot was mentioning earlier this morning, when we were talking off this, since I'm end of route, I want as many partners at this end of route as possible. Who cares about the rest of the network beyond the hub? And there's a famous person who got very quickly promoted through a very large airline group because he understood that really well and exploited it and became chief commercial officer of one of the largest airlines in the world and now is CEO of a very large airline in this region. There's a problem with that. The problem with that is you're trying to flow through the maximum revenue through Singapore for your airline group, whether it's BA, whether it's Lufthansa Group or so on, potentially at the expense of the London to Frankfurt revenue, at the expense of the Gothenburg to Frankfurt revenue, where the better passenger who's worth more to the Lufthansa network would have come through and terminated in Singapore. But because you're incentivized at outstation, you want more agreements here for the passengers to go through. That's a fundamental failure in the airline industry, where we have a breakdown between point of sale and O&D network revenue. I don't know how many people just understood what I just said. Network revenue is a very complicated subject.
It is.
So we work with a number of airlines where we have this constant challenge, right? But when you sit down with the CEO and the chief commercial officer, they get it because they're actually the first line in an airline who has to deal with this problem. Under the chief commercial officer, most divisions, the alliance department's incentives, the network department's incentives, and sales departments are actually not aligned. So I would challenge every airline in the room just to rethink the model. More interline passengers and more interline revenue is not necessarily more profit for your airline. I'll give you an example. If Dermot decided to launch Sydney and decided that he would do a code share between Sydney and Melbourne, there's a chance that would boost the quality of his airline because he would have spill and recapture via Melbourne to Sydney, via Sydney to Melbourne, depending on the day. But there's actually a chance that by doing that, he would shift better quality Sydney revenue via Melbourne and have to share prorate revenue with the partner on the short sector.
It's a happy problem to have.
Right?
If that's the case, it's a happy problem to have.
But when he does that, he actually cannibalizes his own network. His net effect on his network is negative, not positive.
I think that's also when your revenue management comes into play and then the steering comes into play. So they need to work closely as well.
Yeah.
And that's when you need to shut
But
down.
that's the case for maybe 3 months of the year, the peak 3 months, right?
Oh, so
This industry is 9 months of trying to minimize your losses. We know this, right?
Yeah.
So you need the volumes
Yeah.
for those 9 months of the year.
Yeah.
So again, it's just a question of getting your revenue management team to do their job, isn't it?
I think this is important, structuring those agreements as well, right? Which booking classes do you make available and so on. So there's a lot of that mechanics that I fear that there are airlines who are not as sophisticated as a Lufthansa Group or as a United or as a Air France who have been doing this a really long time, who actually made the rules. And airlines are coming new to the party and actually don't understand these details. And you end up, Air China wants to do a deal with me. I'm so happy. China Southern, huge airline, wants to do a deal with me. I'm so privileged. And you need to go in and check and say, wait a minute, is this actually better for me? Right?
So can I just add to that? Is that the key point? Because I think that's very much the case. As a small airline with a very kind of weak brand, and I say that because I worked for a very strong brand previously in Virgin Atlantic, that, I'll be honest, that very much is our thinking sometimes, that, it's not just about the revenue, it's about expanding the network and also getting the brand kind of halo effect of being partnered with much larger airlines, which then raises your own brand. That's great in theory, but yeah, we do actually have a codeshare at the moment with one of the big 3 Chinese airlines, which isn't performing.
Right.
So yeah, good point.
So can I open it up to the floor? We've done a little bit of interactive, but do we have any questions from the floor? Who were so interesting or so uninteresting? I'm not sure. Questions, thoughts? How many people on the floor believe that LCCs should partner with each other? Interesting. How many people think they shouldn't? Or are we just in a room that no one's ever going to put up their hand? Okay. Okay. Interesting information for your group. How many people believe that full service carriers and LCCs should partner? Okay. One way or two way? Should they be able to transfer passengers from full service onto LCCs only, or also from LCCs back to full service?
If you transfer from full service to LCCs, you have to be very clear with your passengers what's happening, because they will be expecting a service from whichever aircraft that they'll be landing on. Yeah, because already with codeshare partnerships, you might be thinking you're flying on Air France and you end up on a Chinese airline and it's a different product, but at least it's a full service. If you then up on a low cost, your passenger really needs to know what they've bought. I think it's a lot about the communication.
It's a big challenge. This is what we experienced in Europe now with Eurowings, Germanwings, having separated clearly hub services and point-to-point European and German services. But there were a few examples, like Düsseldorf, where I come from. Just arrived in Singapore a few weeks ago in a new role as the sales director for Southeast Asia. Before I was in Düsseldorf. And Düsseldorf was an example that was different, because there we had also the long-haul flights to New York, to Chicago, and all the Eurowings flights coming in and feeding for long-haul. So that was kind of a trouble issue all the time. So in terms of IT, in terms of product promises, customer promises, and all of this. So that was a big challenge, and I think it is actually not really the right way to do. You should have a consistent approach and consistent product in that way.
So now you know what it feels like to be a Berlin. Now you know what it feels like to be a Berlin who have been struggling with that in Düsseldorf for a decade.
But how is it any different to the third family concept for full service airlines?
So this is where, you know, to be blunt, I think European airlines are 15 years behind the North American carriers. They're launching new subsidiary LCCs, which has been tried and tested by British Airways, by Air Canada, by United, by, you know, we all forget TED, Song, Tango, Snowflake, right, Go, right, and, you know, but the carriers who have done it well have done exactly what you've said, Michael. They've said, wait a minute, who are my customers? Which markets do I compete on? How, if I have overlapping networks, then should I really have two carriers competing? Should I have Jetstar and Qantas? You can put that with a shared scale cost of a full service carrier. No LCC can match, not even AirAsia.
Why I want to challenge just one second. Why I want to challenge this is two things. First of all, the cost structure of an LCC will never be matched by an AVC carrier, will it?
Yes, it will. The Tango product cost structure is lower than an LCC because there is no new airline. There's no Geschäftsführer of Germanwings and Eurowings in Switzerland. And there isn't.
Okay, then maybe the second issue. Producing new, or let's say stimulating the market with a new brand is proven, for example, with Eurowings to really work better than Lufthansa would ever have been able to. In Düsseldorf, we increased the number of passengers in this greatest, in this greatest location of Germanwings much stronger and faster than Lufthansa would have ever been able to do.
So I don't want to get this. Yeah, I don't want to get into a debate about that market, but I think people in the room should know. Where is the largest catchment area in Europe? Is it London? Is it Frankfurt? Does anyone know? Where is the largest catchment area?
In
terms of people count.
Volume of traveling passengers. Where is it?
It might be Düsseldorf.
No, it's Western Germany, it's Europe.
It's the Rhine-Ruhr,
Yeah.
which is
and it's-
between Cologne and Düsseldorf
and it's
Airport.
northern Italy and it's London.
Yeah, number one is the Rhine-Ruhr region.
Yeah.
So anybody who put capacity in Cologne or Düsseldorf would have grown. Anybody.
Lufthansa tried it before, they didn't.
Well,
No.
so
Just for me to come back to the SQ example, and I'm not going to get into whether it's working or not for them to have these 3 or 4 different carriers. I think from a customer perspective, it's very important to maybe have that segmentation, because like we said earlier in your keynote panel, that the low costers have to own the pie. That there is now a segment of customers that probably would not even think of looking online and looking at fares on Singapore Airlines because they know it's just too expensive for them. So whether there was a Tango class available or not, they don't know the airline terminology. But a Tiger Airways for them, yes, that's something that I can aspire to fly, and I think that's what probably helps from a customer perspective.
but
If
Tiger
they're on separate markets, yeah.
Yes.
The question is what happens when you're operating in the same market. So is Scoot's business class cannibalizing SQ's premium economy or low-end fares business class?
But that's why I said I won't go in from an airline perspective, but just from a customer perspective, it does make sense to have that.
But if the customer becomes loyal to the Scoot brand,
Mm-hmm.
does it matter to them if all of a sudden tomorrow Singapore Airlines offered Scoot as a fare bucket on SQ? That's what happened with TED. That's what happened with Tango. There were these airlines, conceptually everything everyone is saying is correct, but the market says that's not what they want. And that's what we have to learn, right? If we start when we're 18 working for an airline, spend all our time, we haven't bought a ticket in 20 years, we're biased. The world has changed. The market keeps telling us it does not want that. And the market there has said, I want that product. I don't care whose metal it's on. So if Scoot, if you imagine Ryanair and Aer Lingus, if one day you could actually merge these and there was half a plane which is Ryanair and half a plane that was Aer Lingus, wouldn't that have worked really well if you could take the complexity away? Because there would be passengers who, if you could do it without the complexity and say, those of you that want pure bum and seat, here. Those of you that want something else, here it is. Wouldn't that be cheaper than running 2 airlines?
Yeah, but then you can forget about a brand then. There is no brand proposition. The whole brand value is lost. Because if you have 2 brand propositions on one airline, so to say, I'm confused as a passenger.
Hotels, yeah.
Howard Johnson has about 8 different sub-brands called Howard Johnson.
But not in the same hotel. They have different hotels.
Oh, but look,
the
Frankfurt
brand,
Airport.
it's the brand.
But they're still different hotels.
Frankfurt
that's
Airport
why-
has 2 Hiltons, a Hilton and a Hilton Garden Inn, in the same building, right?
I think we're trying to be too clever.
So, anyway, exciting stuff today. Lunch is being served upstairs. Please don't eat the lunch here. Right? So, really upstairs. I hope you enjoyed our very interactive session today. There is going to be more topics on partnerships later today, and then some more about restructuring and so on in this room. So we look forward to seeing you all again.